Hey, Scott with Renegade. This is going to be a pretty good representation of how to prep the engine bay when we're doing the LS conversion using the Boxster S 6-speed transaxle. Some of the electrical was already kind of yanked out of this car previously by other owners or other shops, and so we did have to redo quite a bit of the electrical, so that's the only thing that's going to be kind of missed on this, but we'll cover little bits and pieces. The biggest thing is I wanted you to have the opportunity to be able to see what can be done prior to when you actually put the engine and transaxle in. We have the unique opportunity to be able to walk back and forth between two cars. This one's going to be a very, very basic, straightforward, nice, easy conversion. That's why the engine bay is all prepped and ready to go. And we have one that's over next door that's a really, really high-end conversion where things are about 80% done as far as the engine bay goes. So I'm going to go ahead and have Alex kind of squeeze in a little bit so that we can start talking about various different parts, all right? We're going to break this down. First of all, fuel system. Those plastic lines that go down underneath and through the tunnel, those things are garbage. They're old, they're getting more and more brittle as years go by. It's very, very easy, honestly, to take these lines and just replace them. You can get to the other end quite easily. Since you're doing the Boxster S conversion, you no longer have a big shift rod in the way. It just makes the tunnel wide open so that you can do all sorts of stuff. And so replacing those fuel lines, this is obviously your supply line, this is your return line, is something that I would highly recommend. So there you go as far as that goes. Now, in this particular car, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the Edelbrock sump high pressure pump system. We're starting to use that more and more and more because it really combats any sort of oxygenation of the fuel, vapor lock, things like that. And that's going to go way up in this area, right up in here. We're not going to put it in until such time as the engine is going to be hanging, just because of the fact that we want to make sure it's not going to be close to anything as far as hot surfaces or anything like that. And so let's talk about the shifter cables. Shifter cables are obviously right here. These are stock Boxster S shifter cables. They work reasonably well. It's actually better if you were to purchase an aftermarket set through us, because one of the cables can actually stand to be shortened by 6 inches. They're a little bit higher temperature when we do an aftermarket. But in this particular case, these shifter cables were almost brand new. They were in a pretty low mileage car when we pulled it out with the transaxle, and so they seem to be okay for this application. So we're going to go ahead and put them in. We're going to make sure that we wrap everything with high temperature reflective DEI floor and tunnel shield and or DEI gold shield tape. Stuff is amazing. It works really, really well. So we'll sleeve all of this to make sure that it's going to be protected, because these shifter cables do have a tendency of heating up, and then the Teflon on the inside starts to melt into the cable, and it makes it really, really hard to shift, if not impossible. So make sure that you do protect these. Now, we came through this hole that you can see right here, which is where the old speedometer cable came through. The reason why we did that is because, once again, that's something else that's going to be lost in this conversion, as far as we don't need a speedometer cable anymore. We're not running an actual cable-driven speedometer off the transaxle. The transaxle doesn't have any provision for that. So what we like to do is we like to upgrade to a GPS-style speedometer. You can even have a face very similar to the stock speedometer. Or what you can do is you can use a 911 speedometer, which was electronic, and then we have a way of actually converting the pulse signal off of a relector wheel if you want to do that. Quite frankly, it's easiest to just go with the GPS speedometer, and there are companies that definitely make a face that looks almost identical to the stock 914, so it's a really, really nice setup. For that matter, upgrading all of your gauges is actually something what a lot of people do, and it's not as expensive as what you think. But I digress. If this right here are your shifter cables and it comes through right here, what happens is your harmonic balancer sits right there, and it works out just great. So I can show you that next door in just a minute. The cabling, as far as the wiring and stuff like that in here, you can see that we're using the stock boot, but quite frankly, most of this stuff has all been changed out. We have a multi-connector cable that we've run, 2 of them as a matter of fact, to come from the fuse box forward. This is where the old 14-pin connector connected up. This is, so you can see some of the pins that we popped out of there. That's what ties into some of the electrical that goes into the back and some of the old engine electrical. So we are going to use a little bit of this, but quite frankly, we're going to do our own CAN connector. And this stuff you won't ever see in a 914 either. This is stuff that was run previously to a gauge cluster that is more of an aftermarket gauge cluster in this car. So please ignore most of this. The long and the short of it is the 14-pin connector can be used. There will be a couple of extra cables that you will need to run. Your fly-by-wire throttle body to your throttle pedal. So and as opposed to it being cable driven, if you are going to be running a fly-by-wire, then the throttle pedal, which we do have a throttle pedal kit, to be able to accommodate that, you will need to do wiring for that. And then your OBD2 connector will be the other one that you're running extra wiring. And then any sort of extra gauges that you may want to support, that would be extra wiring as well. But honestly, the 14-pin connector carries most of what you would need just for the primary support of the engine in the car. And this right here is the hydraulic cable, or a hydraulic hose. This particular hose runs all the way through and goes all the way up to the front, where we have the 914 to Boxster S hydraulic clutch master system up in the front, which is also available from us. We're using a Willwood clutch master, but we're supporting it with a custom-made bracket that comes off the pedals. It's a really, really ingenious setup. So bottom line is what we do is we run this line, which is all part of the kit. It's obviously a Teflon and braided line that goes all the way from the front to the back, and this ties right into the Boxster S clutch slave. And so you can use the stock clutch slave. We've already done the math for you so that the master actually works with the slave. And so we've got this prepped and ready to go as well. Let's go back here and I'll talk about this back here. There is the old heat shield that was up in here. We take that out because it was really, really intrusive. It kind of sat way down like this. And so that's for the old exhaust system that you had before. That can be completely removed because when you do put a new muffler in here, whether you go with like a single muffler with a 2-in, single out, which is what we're going to do with this car, or if you do some sort of a dual or a center dump system or something like that, you can do a much cleaner heat shield to work with the conversion. These are the mounts. These are the sport mounts. One of the most important things that you need to realize is there's a great big huge fender washer on the back side of this. It's going to be a little bit tough to see it, but you should be able to see that right there. This fender washer is sized so that it sits up here. So if for whatever reason this mount right here were to ever rip out, that fender washer is not going to allow the transaxle to drop down. But it's still sized in such a way that it's not touching the outer jacket to this mount right here. And so it's rubber isolated through and through. Then the bottom side, this is where the 914 to Boxster S mount, again, available through Renegade, ties right in here, and it supports the Boxster S transaxle right up in here. The rear sway bar that's back here is going to be really tight to the top of the Boxster S transaxle. If it ends up in your particular car touching, or if you upgraded the rear sway bar, you can always drop the rear transaxle mount right here, just put in a longer bolt and just drop it down ever so slightly and just space it right there. But we are going to leave it in this particular car because it's got a pretty soft spring package on it. So, and then we're going to go back up to the front and talk about the mounts up here. These mounts are, I don't know, I call them kind of like a teardrop mount, if you will. It's just, it's basically a slotted mount, allows you a little bit of flexibility as far as moving the engine forward and aft so that everything fits perfectly, because none of these cars are ever the same. But this particular plate that goes right in here is bolted in, as you can see. The mount, our mount, comes right up and it ties right into this area and then comes across just like this and hangs from this. Now people say, well, what happened to the rubber isolators right here? Well, we get rid of the rubber isolators that are the stock 914 setup, and we isolate on the side of the block right up here with the stock GM isolators, so that your engine and transaxle are still rubber isolated, so that you have the benefit of a nice smooth engine and tranny combination. You're not doing any sort of direct or solid mounting system. So we have these right here that are also available. So all in all, the prep in the engine bay is pretty close to done. We're actually going to put the engine, which I'm going to walk over and show you just here in a second. We're going to put it in here a little bit later on today, and then we'll continue on and we'll do some more videos. But come on over here for a second. We prepped the engine, as you can see right now. It's a bit of a mess because we're still in the process of doing a lot of the prep work. Please forgive the fact that we've got stuff all over the place. But one of the neatest things that I want to show you, if you want to see right here, we are doing a different intake. So the reason why we're doing this is because of the fact that in the 914s for many, many years, what we were doing is we were actually reversing the solid or the nylon high temperature plastic intake, reversing it and going into the rear trunk area. It actually worked really, really great because we were able to use the stock engine. But for those people that want a little bit more, I don't know, less cutting in the trunk area and a little bit more flexibility with their trunk, we've decided to come up with a new system using some of the Holley components. What this does is this allows this intake right here to go here, but still work with the stock throttle body. The way that we do it, if I can find that piece, is we have, here it is down here. Thank you very much. Our cameraman Alex, he has handed it to me. We are using this Holley EFI converter piece, this angle piece that's right here. So what this will do is this is going to mount right up on top, and then it's going to allow us to put the throttle body right here. So this is the stock GM throttle body working with the stock pedal using a different intake, but we're still using stock injectors, stock coil packs, stock fuel rails, and I can keep going on and on and on. So the bottom line is this right here is a really, really wonderful way to do a quick upgrade so that you're not cutting into the rear trunk and having to loop it around, do cold air intake or anything like that. So we'll show you more of this in other videos and pictures and things like that, but that kind of gives you an idea. With regards to what it looks like when it's all done, come on over here. So this engine bay is about 80% prep. So you can see the stock mounts in the rear, the sport mounts in the rear with our really, really awesome transmission. So this would be 914 to Boxster S tranny mount. As you can see, how it holds onto this, every single one of these planes, this plane here, the plane that's up on top here, here, and here, they're at 4 different levels, believe it or not. Those 4 different levels all had to be accommodated when we did all the geometry and the math in here in order to hold this so that it's not being put in some sort of a twist or put in shear. And so this mount, I'm very, very proud of it. It works incredible. And the mere fact that it actually ties up into the stock 914 setup like this with the sport mounts is just, I gotta say, that's one of my most favorite pieces that we build right now. You can see the motor mount up front. It accommodates the water pump, electric water pump. As you can see, you can come up here. It's gonna be a little bit tight, but you can come up here. You can see where the hydraulic line. You can follow that back, and it goes back to the slave cylinder right there. You can see here where we did the fuel lines right here. So the same upgrade you saw that was in the process next door is what's happening right here. And the fuel pump, if you want to kind of zoom up in there, you can see the fuel pump in there. That particular car, we're maintaining the battery in the engine bay, so it's going to be a little bit tighter. This particular car, we moved the battery up front. It was an upgrade. You can see the shifter cables coming through the old speedo hole, and as you can see, that actually goes back here. These have not been wrapped yet. These will all actually be wrapped before they're 100% installed. We're still doing quite a bit, as you can see. We just put the starter on, things like that. You can see the rubber isolation on the side. We're using an energy suspension upgraded style mount. You can see our AC compressor. Everything clears and it's nice and tight. You can see how Dana's done a great job at making sure that all of this is going to work as far as that goes. I mean, I could go on and on and on and just kind of cover this install, but this is all stuff that is available through Renegade. This is all stuff that we can help you out with. And so if you have any additional questions, if oh, and one more thing, sorry, got to add one more. We do have our custom axles. So if we're doing Boxster S, which Boxster S on this end, and adapter plates now that go from 914 stub axles, so that 4 bolts, 2 roll pin style setup that would be the 914 right there, and then on the other side of it, it would be the same as this right here, which is technically 930. We've got 930 to 930 with our adapters out here in a custom length axle with boots and everything. Those are now available, and we're selling like hotcakes. And so, again, if you want any more information, give us a call, 702-739-8011. You can always check us out on the web at www.renegadehybrids.com. It's another one of these videos where I basically walk around and point and talk and spew and all that sort of stuff, and it's no script, no nothing. This is how we do it. We're pretty raw, but we do some really awesome work. Thanks to my guys here at Renegade. They do an absolutely outstanding job, and thanks to all of my customers out there. Really, really appreciate you guys a ton. Give us a call. Love to hear from you.